beg to move that this House has considered the future of A-level archaeology. And can I first declare an interest as somebody who studied archaeology at university, somebody who's hacked through jungles in pursuit of Mayan pyramid sites, spent wet summers in duffel cakes digging out Roman forts on Hadrian's wall, and started such a practice at the age of 7 on a windy hillside in Sussex on a Saxon homestead. I'm also chairman of the all-party parliamentary group for archaeology and for the British Museum, and a fellow of the Society of Antiquaries. And I also want to put on record my thanks to Dr. Mike Hayworth of the Council for British Archaeology, who provides the secretariat for the all-party group and who has provided very useful background and information for today's debate. Now, I'm sure it doesn't to you, Mr. Owen, but it may seem something of a niche subject that we are about to debate. But it is an important issue, and if nothing is done, the current cohort of students studying archaeology in our schools and colleges will be the last. We already have lost the GCSE in archaeology. In my day, I studied AO archaeology all those years ago. Those days are long since gone. Because in October, the examination board AQA, which is the last board offering archaeology A-level, announced that after a lot of consideration, they'd made the difficult decision to discontinue their work creating new AS and A-level qualifications for teaching from September 2017 in archaeology, as well as in classical civilization, history of art, and statistics. And that's despite the fact, Mr. Owen, that in 2016, over 600 candidates sat the AS exams in archaeology, and 369 sat the A-level, which has been a fairly consistent number over the last 5 years. And despite the fact that on their own website, the AQA describes archaeology as one of the most exciting subjects in the curriculum. It is the ultimate subject for an all-round student, in that it combines elements of many other academic disciplines such as science, art, technology, geography, history, sociology, and religious studies. The study of archaeology challenges students to understand and use a range of evidence to draw substantiated conclusions and raises their awareness of the uncertainty of knowledge. And indeed, it is one of the most exciting, challenging, and stretching subjects in the curriculum. Far from scrapping it, Mr. Owen, we should be promoting and expanding it in more schools and to more students, particularly in the state sector. Archaeology is not some dusty, crusty, outdated subject for eccentric fossils like me. It teaches us about who we are, where we come from, and where we can be going, and how we relate to those around us. As the great Roman Republican senator, consul, and historian Cicero said, "To be ignorant of what went before you were born is to remain always a child." On the point of Cicero, I'm delighted to have an intervention.
Ciceronian advocacy here. No, it isn't the point that archaeology ought not to be seen as a poor cousin of history. All those reasons to study history apply in equal measure to archaeology.
Well, my honourable friend is absolutely right, because it teaches us the disciplines of forensic analysis, how to peel back the layers of evidence, literally, how to contextualise, to study the data in physical form, or often as importantly, its absence in physical form, and to make assumptions based on scientific analysis. Those very same disciplines, in a contemporary context, were brought to bear in the Shoreham Air Show tragedy in my constituency last year, when expert archaeologists were brought in to help in the grim but necessary job of identifying remains. And there are many everyday applications for archaeologists in police, crime, and detective work. From archaeology, we learn a lot about our environment and the relationship between man and our landscape. Why was a Bronze Age settlement built on that side of the Downs, for example? How it relates to sources of water and preservation of scarce resources? How were the Romans able to keep food fresh and preserved without electricity and refrigeration? How did the Mayans build pyramids that mirrored the cosmos with the most accurate charts and calendars until the invention of the modern computer? How did the Greeks build such magnificent temples without JCBs and machines? And how all of them could teach us a lot about recycling, respecting and conserving resources, and working in partnership with nature, when things like food miles were scarce and expensive. And there are numerous examples of how archaeology has helped modern civilizations, such as the rediscovering of the Roman irrigation system in Libya to provide water for sustainable agriculture today. From archaeology, we can learn about our society at a national and local level, what binds us together across generations, and where archaeological and heritage projects can be a major tool for regeneration and education in deprived communities especially. Archaeology is a major driver to the economy, not just as a visitor attraction source and the contribution to tourism, but as a serious employer across many sectors too. Heritage tourism in this country generated some £20.2 billion last year, gross value added, responsible for 386,000 jobs. The British Museum, the #1 visited attraction in the United Kingdom with over 7 million visitors last year. The world's greatest museum, and a museum of and for the world and the culture of mankind on this planet. The contribution of marine archaeology through famous wrecks such as the Mary Rose, which attracts hundreds of thousands of visitors to Portsmouth. In the creative arts as well, the stories, the films, the programmes about the treasures of Tutankhamun, of Howard Carter, the documentaries on Egypt, the more fanciful adventures of Indiana Jones, for example, are all linked to archaeology. And in Syria, alongside the horrific scenes of man's inhumanity to man, more attention was given to the tragedy because of the destruction of archaeological treasures in UNESCO World Heritage Sites, such as the spectacular Palmyra, which I was privileged to visit when it was safe to do. A nation's... I'll give way, of course.
I congratulate him on securing this important debate. He refers to the jobs and the employment that's created in the heritage sector, and I was grateful to Dr. John Davey, who's the lab manager for archaeology at the University of Exeter, who sent me the figure that currently 55.3% of those employed in this area are aged 45 to 55. And when you agree with me, that shows the importance of continuing studies in A-level archaeology to recruit the people we need in the future to replace those retiring.
Well, my honourable friend is right, and I'm very pleased and grateful for the work that many academics in archaeology departments have done to communicate these important facts to members of Parliament about how archaeology applies across the generations and across the social backgrounds as well. But back to Syria, a nation's soul is its culture and heritage, and that is why it's so important to preserve and to protect these important sites and the products of their civilizations. If war-torn countries like Syria are to pull themselves up and recover, then retrieving a sense of cultural identity will be a major part of that. But when misused, archaeology can be distorted by nation-states to create particular slanted, propaganda-driven visions of the past. And then there is the practical application of archaeology and archaeologists in a developed industrial country like the United Kingdom. Quite simply, Mr. Owen, if we are to build houses, develop communities, construct major infrastructure projects, then we need archaeologists to recce and clear the ground first. And the fact is that if the Northern Powerhouse, HS2, Garden Cities and the like are to happen, then we need trained archaeologists in at the beginning, and they are in short supply, as confirmed by the Chartered Institute of Archaeology and the study carried out by the All-Party Group on Archaeology as well. As Historic England has said, Historic England is concerned to hear that archaeology will no longer be an option at A-level. We anticipate growing demand for archaeologists trained to handle the large number of excavations likely to be needed in advance of housing development and major infrastructure projects. So we need to be encouraging the development of archaeological skills and broadening the appeal of archaeology as a discipline. This move will close off a small but significant route into the profession. To address this situation, we're working with universities and other organisations to promote archaeology apprenticeships and vocational training to offer potential new routes into the profession. And as Professor Corenza Lewis of the University of Lincoln, but also of Time Team fame, put it, archaeology develops a range of transferable knowledge and skills, such as critical thinking, structured working, reflective learning, report writing, team working, verbal communication, and citizenship, lack of which often disadvantages students, in particular those from less affluent backgrounds, when they attempt to continue their education or enter the workplace. Hear, hear, to which I could add a whole list of other disciplines involving the environment, sustainability, culture, regeneration, and heritage. And it's a major source of volunteering as well, Mr. Owen. Back in 1980, the CBA calculated there was something like 100,000 archaeological volunteers across the country, spread between about 450 societies. By 2010, that had grown to 215,000 across 2,030 organised archaeological groups and societies. And Dr. Daniel Boatwright, who teaches archaeology A-level at Worcester Sixth Form College, and who has started the petition, which has so far attracted 13,261 signatures, describes specialist A-levels like archaeology as vital tools in sparking students' interest in learning and preparing vital skills for use when they go into university courses. AQA is extremely naive if it believes that UK students will benefit from a curriculum of only the major subjects. What we will be most sorry to lose is a subject capable of bringing out talents and potential in students that might have been left undiscovered. He is absolutely right. So why is, Mr. Owen, archaeology A-level so integrally important to all this? Well, the fact is that nearly 3/4 of students who currently study A-level archaeology go on to study archaeology at university, from which many of our archaeology professionals come. That route to jobs will now be cut off. And it is clear that this decision by AQA is a hasty and ill-thought-through one. It was announced without any discussion with anyone in archaeology or anyone associated with the delivery of the A-level or its redevelopment. It came out of the blue, apparently flying in the face of the archaeological community, which is and has been ready to offer additional support and publicity for the new qualification and has already undertaken research on what is needed. A lot of hard work has already taken place in the expectation that archaeology A-level would be revamped, reinvigorated, grown and promoted. And as the Council for British Archaeology has said, in addition, the archaeology profession has been developing government-approved apprenticeships which are due to be launched in 2017. Together with A-level archaeology, these would have offered an important alternative pathway into the profession at a time when there is a growth in demand for archaeologists linked with large infrastructure projects. And I also want to pay tribute to the good work done by the DFE in promoting the Heritage Schools project to bring archaeologists and other experts into schools. Now, AQA has given 3 main reasons for their decision to discontinue the qualification. 1, the complexity of the syllabus means there's a lack of specialists to market. 2, declining numbers coming forward to study the subject, although they've been fairly constant over 5 years. And 3, the difficulties of maintaining a comparative marking system with the degree of optionality available within the specification. But the response from the archaeological community has queried all 3 points. Feedback from Ofqual had been very positive about the development of the new specification and the progression of the drafts. There's a general consensus amongst existing examiners and teachers that the new syllabus would reduce the complexity, and there is a wealth of qualified examiners and teachers to use, with offers increased support from higher education archaeology academics. In fact, Mr. Owen, there are people who have applied to become markers in archaeology A-level who are on a waiting list. The necessary specialisms are available in the existing examining group, and there has been no attempt by AQA to discuss this with the group, which I think is a great shame. So it makes no sense that AQA have dropped this subject and at this time. I will give way very briefly.
On that specific point, does he not agree with me that the criticisms or the concerns that have been raised by AQA apply just as much with history of art, and they've had a U-turn on history of art, and therefore they ought to have a U-turn on this as well?
Well, indeed, they haven't had a U-turn on those subjects. They've been taken on by another examination board, which I'll come on to in a minute, but he makes a valid point. There has been some glimmer of hope, as alternative examination boards have shown an interest, most notably Pearson UK, who have previously come to the rescue of underappreciated subjects and which announced earlier this month that they would be taking over the art history and statistics A-level and GCSE and A-levels in 5 minor languages. Yet the archaeology A-level is left to languish unloved. Although I am encouraged to hear that after initial rejection, Pearson UK is meeting a delegation from the CBA, the Chair of University Archaeology UK, and the Chief Examiner for AQA A-level Archaeology next week. The archaeological sector, Mr. Owen, has been galvanised into offering considerable support for the development and delivery of the new archaeology A-level specification, with offers from employers, academics, archaeological contractors, teachers, Historic England, assorted professional bodies. The all-party group stands ready, and Sir Tony Robinson, who did so much to inspire a generation of children into digging up their gardens in the pursuit of the past, including my son, who I'm delighted is not far from us today. All the work he did with Time team, he's fully behind this campaign as well. And as he's put it, he's described the loss of archaeology A-level as a barbaric act. It feels like the Visigoths are at the gates of Rome, Mr. Owen. So why is this down to the government, and what do I want the Minister to do? Well, it all comes about as a result of changes to the A-levels under this government. As AQA themselves have put it, prior to our decision, AQA was fully committed to offering a new AS level in archaeology, accredited by Ofqual, using the subject criteria determined by the department. Indeed, at the time of our decision, we'd already put considerable resources into developing a new AS level in archaeology and fully intended to offer these qualifications from 2017. But in the process of developing and obtaining accreditation for the new levels, we have concluded that the new qualifications developed from the government's criteria will be extremely challenging to mark as a result of the large number and specialist nature of the options, creating major risks when it comes to safely awarding grades. And in this context, they say, we have concluded that there are unacceptable awarding delivery risks for the new archaeological A-level. And AQA have also signalled that if they do give up the A-level themselves, they were agreeable to handing over to another exam board the majority of the specification material that's been developed for the planned new archaeology A-level, together with initial comments from Ofqual, and they also helpfully agreed to consider continuing to offer the existing specification for a further year to aid a transition to a new exam board to make sure there is no gap. Now, the Minister replied to me on the 23rd of November that he was in discussion with other examination boards on this issue, and I'd like to know the progress that has made. And the Minister himself praised Pearson UK for coming to the rescue of the other A-levels that had been dropped, but curiously not archaeology. So, this is, I know, Mr. Owen, that the Minister is an accountant, but even he could not surely be seized of the moment when Howard Carter glimpsed those treasures of Tutankhamun hidden from human reach for 3,300 years. When Sir Leonard Woolley first came across the royal treasures, Sumerian treasures from the royal tombs at Ur, or when Hiram Bingham first glimpsed that fantastic Mayan city in the sky in Machu Picchu. Surely even him, with his frenzied interest in spreadsheets and profit and loss balance paragraphs, surely he could not have been enthused to grab for a 4-inch pointing trowel to investigate what lay beneath his feet. Parliament has a special relationship with archaeology. It was this House that in 1753, under an Act of Parliament, established the British Museum as a universal museum and now has 8 million items. Sir Austin Henry Layard was the Liberal MP for Amersham from 1852, gave us invaluable archaeological records and some of the first sketches of the ruins at Nineveh, Nimrud and Babylon. The first Lord Avebury, as MP for Maidstone from 1870, rescued Avebury, the largest Stone Age site in Britain, and invented the terms Paleolithic and Neolithic and drove the Ancient Monuments Act of 1882. We have a special relationship and a special interest and a special duty to the archaeological treasures of this country and indeed the world. This is an opportunity, Mr. Owen, for the Minister to prove that he's not a Visigoth. All excavation archaeology is inevitably destructive, but with a legitimate and valuable purpose that adds to the knowledge of man. Destroying such a successful route to widening that knowledge is unforgivable and illegitimate destruction, and I hope that the Minister will think again.